think it's time to get started. Today we're just going to be going over some of the random failures in Mercury. These are, of course, not going to be random for us, but we'll talk about each one. Let's just get the chat pulled up here. There we go. So, got to remember the key that opens failures. Here it is. So here's a list of each of the failures that can happen. So we'll just go through top to bottom. So we've got each of the battery failures, and we've got each of the sequencing failures. So failure of starting a clock, failure of the program. Programmer will fail everything on the sequencer stack at the same time. Basically, you have to manually push each button, but you can also fail the individual ones. You can fail clock starts. You have to hit the time 0 button. Isolated battery and main deploy are grayed out because they are implemented, however, would result in a loss of the mission. Totally irrecoverable. In terms of the main chute, the reserve chute, I believe, is not implemented into the game. So main deploy is grayed out, and isolated battery is grayed out because it's the only thing that stages the rockets. You can fail instrumentation, and you can also fail the components which were on each of those instrumentations. So I guess first, we'll just go sort of top to bottom, I guess. Right? So we're going to have to reload several times today, obviously. Rather unfortunate circumstance, but yep. That is just what it is today. So if we fail battery 1, we notice, let's just actually plug in all of the batteries. And then turn on the ammeter, and then let's go switch to internal power. Okay, so you'll notice when we failed battery 1, it dropped out on both volts and amps. Just because something is dropped out on amps does not mean that it is dead. For example, if we are not using the standby batteries, they will have 0 amps. So the volts indication is a great indication on if a battery has failed. So one of the ways you can tell if a battery has failed is just by looking at your current battery. If we were to fail battery 3, we can see a rise in the amps of battery 2 as it has to increase load to compensate for the loss of the other batteries. So this is a great way of telling if your batteries have failed, and it's the reason why you select battery 1 in flight. Because if battery 1 fails, you get this indication. And if it doesn't fail, you get a rise in the amps, and you know to look at your other 2 batteries. If you just look at the main bus, you can see it has been completely stable this entire time, unless, of course, we fail the last battery. Now we have a dropout on everything, except a clock, which is wound up mechanically. To get power back, we have, of course, the standby batteries, which can work for us. And just as before, if we were to fail standby battery 1, standby battery 2 must increase to compensate. If we fail standby battery 2, we get a blackout. However, we are able to power the spacecraft on the isolated battery. Taking a look at indication. Now, we'll go over to sequencer later, but taking a look at instrumentation, we can fail, for example, fuel auto. We can see the meter has dropped dead. It appears that we have 0 fuel. However, in the Mercury spacecraft, there are 2 level sensors. One level sensor will display the current level in a tank, and the other level sensor is a low alarm. So this is just a fixed point. If the liquid gets below that level, the alarm triggers. So we can tell that we actually still have auto fuel even though we lost the indication. And that is because we still, we don't have the alarm. If we were to fail, for example, the auto fuel tank, now we have the alarm. And kind of in the same way, we can do the same thing with the oxygen tank. Failing the primary oxygen here, we lose the gauge. If we fail the primary oxygen tank, now we can see, take a look at that. It's dipping from secondary. I could sort of see it, but we'll have to skip time for you to see it, but we are dipping from the secondary tank now. Primary tank is gone. Failing the horizon scanners means that your gyros are only going to work in gyro-free mode. And then failing the ASCS means you lose the autopilot. Failing the gyros means you lose attitude indication altogether. So let's reload the save. I guess I could have just hit reload there instead of end mission, whatever. Let's reload. And then we'll just go over some of the different things that appear. Yes, we are going to cover what to do in the emergency situations. Actually, you know what? Let's just spice things up right away. Random failures in Mercury, we're going to kick that up to 80%. And all failures possible. Good. We got ourselves random failures up to 80%. That should be good for a good old Mercury flight. So yeah, I was just sort of jumping through the logic of seeing like when something fails versus when it doesn't fail. Like when you lose the indication versus when you lose the actual piece of equipment. But I think with this, I could go down and do it one by one and go all through all this techno babble, but like no one's going to understand that. So let's just jump in with random failures up to 80%. And when we get a failure, we'll talk about what it is and how to diagnose it. Good day, James Farley. So we are just going to go through the random failure, the startup checklist and into random failures. Whoop. There we go, got a little delay on the loading of the cockpit there. So you've seen all the circuit breakers just flip themselves, it happens sometimes. We'll plug our batteries in. And we'll tie them to the bus. Now we'll go through with the circuit breakers. There are circuit breakers. Inst on. Good here. Cabin fan. That. You. Okay. And I think that's everything for the interior inspection checklist. Nope. See, we do arm auto retrojet and photo lights. And maneuver switch on. This one I always forget. So right off the bat, it doesn't look like anything has failed yet. We still got all our batteries. We got the main bus. We've got AC. Everything looks good so far. Now we'll jump down to abort capability test. That happens at 40 minutes. So go to 40 minutes. And as we're time scaling, we're just going to keep an eye on everything. Doesn't look like we lost anything yet. Okay, 40 minutes. Ammeter switch is on norm. And we will test abort capability. Oh, and sure squibs are armed. Yep. See, look at that, look at that. The abort light has actually failed. Oh, nope, sorry. Actually, no, I just disconnected from external power. Whoopsies. That's okay. So we are on internal power. That is entirely my bad, but that's okay. We have more than enough battery to run a full profile. Okay, coming down to 20 minutes now. And it looks like everything is still good. For the sake of time, we're just going to run through this. All of this indication looks good. Bring us down to 10 minutes. And we'll take off the ties, and we are all good there. Bring us down to 5 minutes. Launch controls ready. Transmit on UHF. Cover remove. Okay. So once again, it doesn't look like we're having any sort of failures here. All batteries are go. Main bus is great. Indication is go so far. One minute. Here we go. 15 seconds. 12.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway. Roger, we're programming and roll okay.
Okay, everything's good so far?
A little bumpy along about here.
Roger. Stand by for 20 seconds.
Roger.
2.
Altimeter's good. All indications good so far. I'm surprised for 80% that we got through that entire launch sequence, actually. It's fairly impressive. Cabin pressure is relieving. Altimeter is still go. Accelerometer is go. The fact that we've gotten this far without seeing a single failure is going to tell me that with the chance that I put that we probably have something on the sequencer panel which has failed. So far, everything's looking good. Let's get our BICO checklist coming up.
Bingo.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Mark. All batteries are still good. Oh, look at that. We've got a dropout on our control fuel manual tank. However, due to the lack of fuel quantity alarms, it is just indication, and so we are still go. Auto retrojet switch off. Emergency retrojet circuit breaker off. Retrojet circuit breaker off. So yep, we can see we did get a dropout on that control fuel tank, manual, but because of the lack of alarm, we're still go on that tank. It's a false indication. Batteries are still go. AC bus is still go. And we are steering. The booster is still steering. So we are go on that no abort light. A little bit of a high vibration coming up here. cut off.
Pico. Lots of grenades fired. Okay.
I just am.
And it looks like everything is still good. DC volts indicator main. Landing bag switch is off. Retro delay switch norm. Emergency retro sequence fuse. Open. Emergency drogue deploy fuse. Open. All instruments show we are good. So just to prove to you guys that we only lost indication on the manual tank. Huh? There we go. Oh, look at that. We lost attitude indication. We can try and recover that. Maybe by going to standby ASCS. Nope. Okay. We can try... We can try AC looks okay. We can try restarting the maneuvering gyros. Does, however, look like we did completely lose indication of attitude here. We could try gyro free. And we did lose the gyros here too. Okay, and we can cage the gyros, and that doesn't work either. So it looks like we may have lost indication. We can try going back to auto and seeing if it's just indication or if it's the full gyro problem. And due to a loss of control from the auto system, it looks like we have a full gyro failure. Batteries are still looking great. Luckily for us, we don't really need to use the gyros at all. So we can peruse on by. Rate of descent indicators still go. All of our indications here are still go. Batteries look okay. Everything's checking out okay. So while we're up here, just in case we don't have some kind of failure, or some kind of sequencer failure, let's do a failure of retro sequence start. So we know that ahead of time, retro sequence start sequencer has failed. But just to give us a little something with the sequencer in case we don't get a sequencer related issue at some point. We lost indication on a primary tank. We need to determine if we're losing cabin O2 or not. Nope, so we are successfully drawing from a secondary tank. All of our batteries are still go. So at this point, we are 30 minutes down to retro. We'll get all of that working up. We can see indication is dropping to match our settings. We can work our way down to 15 minutes. Being careful not to time skip too fast, otherwise that can happen. We are 15 minutes down to retro. So emergency retro sequence fuse on, emergency retrojet fuse on. Everything on here. Auto retrojet is still off, transmitting on UHF. It's auto retro. Okay. So now we have a problem. We need to figure out how we're facing. And we are on a dark side, which is a little bit rough. We can come down to like 5 minutes and hope that we are on the light side, but it looks like we are going to be retroing on the dark side. So to help with navigation, we can get our nav reticle. And we just need to get lined up so that all of this is also lined up. The view is slightly broken now, apparently. But we are going to take manual control. Get to the window, and then the nav reticle, and let's try to get ourselves situated here. We see stars. And lots of stars. Retro on the nighttime is making it likely impossible, so we are actually going to bump up our retro time. Which may put us on land. And also, I'll be right back. Just gonna use the bathroom real quick. I apologize. Stomach's a little upset today, so I'll be right back. Give me 5. Okay, we're back. Sorry for the delay. We're just going to work through. We're going to time skip until daytime. Here we go. Daytime's coming up. Alright, we're 5 minutes down. Now we need to figure out which way we are oriented. Look at that. We can see, again, the horizon through the periscope. Now we are just needing to situate ourselves facing retrograde. So there's a few ways you can verify orientation. You gotta match up the horizon with this line here. And now you have to pay attention to the land track. We can see land track is slightly drifting. So we're not perfectly at 0. We need to come over and with the yaw a little bit. We can use the window as reference now. This should be pretty good. So we'll pay attention to our nav reticle. And we can see it is still behaving ever so funny. So back to the window. So it looks like we are pretty good now. Land is tracking the exacting correct direction. We have the horizon matched with this curved line here. Remember, this curved line here is for suborbital flights. This curved line here is for orbital flights. Okay, so I'd say we're pretty ready now. We can retro over Hawaii. So start retro sequence. And it looks like we may have lost a programmer. Let's get alternate fuse going. Let's get emergency retro sequence fuse going. And fire a retro. We have to manually engage override here. Be very careful to hold attitude. Okay. Auto retrojet on. If we don't get it, yep, there we go. Now we need to get into reentry attitude. Reentry attitude is simply retro attitude, except just pointed a little bit up. So for this one, you're going to take the center line and match it with the far horizon there. And that should be your re-entry attitude if you lose attitude indication. We can come down now. We can see we are perfectly captured. Now we can begin our roll. And at this point, the periscope's retracted, so we just need to have a little bit of faith here. Rate of descent is still looking okay. And it looks like we are unfortunately going to land on land. It's not that big of a deal, though. Better than being dead. Okay, it looks like we have... we're beginning buildup now. Periapsis is rising due to aerodynamic lift, and the apoapsis is falling. And we're looking like we're coming into lots of drag now. Well, apoapsis is rising. It looks like we may be, hopefully, we're not bouncing. I know that wasn't the most perfect re-entry attitude, but it should still be solid enough. And there we go. Atmosphere capture. We're captured. We can see aerodynamic effects are holding us very stable. Yep, there's the flames. Let's make a quick check of our battery situation. And it looks like we did lose battery 2, so we need to pull battery 2 off of the bus. Standby 1, main 2. Main 2 is off. We still got isolated battery. Still got AC. My biggest concern here is if we lost the altimeter. That's going to make things very hard without mission control. But not impossible. Those aerodynamic forces are keeping us stabilized. .22 nautical miles above the surface. All the other batteries are looking good. Oh, okay, braking atmosphere now. Okay, we've got altimeter, good. Emergency drogue deploy, circuit breakers in. And let's uncover our sequence panel here in case that fails automatically. Okay, we've got drogue deploy. Snorkel. Landing bag is on auto. Hey, we're landing over water. Holy smokes, where are we landing? Right in the prime recovery zone. Well, that was completely accidental. I did no math to actually figure that out. So, we've got main deploy, and peroxide has dumped. UHF-DF to delayed time. Sorry, UHF-DF to real time. Pressure regulator handle pull. And everything is good. And we can see it looks like we maybe, oh no, it's still going. Okay. So yeah, that's just basically everything. Going through random emergencies. Just takes a little bit of thought, a little bit of troubleshooting, and if something doesn't work, just be prepared to manually take control where required. So that's really down to it. No homework questions for this one, although I will say if there's anything on this list of failures here that you wanted to know more about, just let me know. So that's main bat 1, 2, 3, standby bat 1, 2, isolated bat, all the sequencer panels, so tower jet, cap sep, retro sequence start, fire retro jet, drogue deploy, main deploy, programmer, clock start, your instruments for pitch, yaw, roll, volts, amps, primary oxygen, secondary oxygen, fuel auto, fuel manual, altitude, and the components for the gyros, horizon scanners, ASCS, auto fuel tank, manual fuel tank, primary oxygen tank, and secondary oxygen tank. If you would like to know more about those failures and how I would go about troubleshooting them in flight, feel free to leave a comment below after the live stream. Of course, it's impossible to cover absolutely everything, but I think this is good enough. Just get you in that sort of mental state to be prepared for failures and to really push the fact that you need to learn your systems and be able to manually take control, be able to make the decision to push the retro back to the next retro zone because you're on the dark side and you have no gyros, you lost your orientation and you can't see Earth. Being prepared to make those split-second decisions is really important, and for that you need to learn about your systems. So next time we are going to push ahead with Gemini, unless anyone has any other questions which would require a additional video be made. But I think we're ready for the Gemini capsule. Gemini capsule will consist of probably 2 or 3 streams. There are no failures which can happen in Gemini aside from the batteries. So probably 2 or 3 streams. We'll go over about the vehicle. We'll go over rendezvous with the Agena. And then probably just a separate video for actually bringing the Gemini in successfully. So that's about it. Thanks for hanging out. I also apologize, my stomach got upset and I had to leave for like 10 minutes. But as part of being alive, I guess. So thanks for stopping by, guys. See ya.